If you've been on YouTube recently, you've probably seen speculation regarding Eclipse Energy and whether or not it'll be the red subclass. Whether or not I actually think it will be isn't really the subject of this video. I will give you my answer to that at the end. But this is more of me just explaining what I believe it is, like my theory regarding what the true nature of Eclipse Energy is. Because, I think that in order to actually talk about if it will be the red subclass, we need to know what it is fundamentally first. And the funny thing is, we were already told, because we already got the explanation for what it is, because Renegades was not its first named appearance, actually. It was in the Edge of Fate with the mission Calculus, in which you destroy those Vex pylon things, which are actually called Eclipse Energy Converters. And in this mission, Orin tells us what it is. She states that it is, quote, dark matter tangled with the Nine's power. She also says that if the Vex were able to use the energy, it would allow them to access the fourth dimension in a way that would allow them to predict our paracausality. That suggests that if you use Eclipse Energy, it may in some way grant you some form of maybe limited access to the fourth dimension. So, is that it? Do we already know? Thanks to that dialogue, because thanks to that dialogue, we know it's dark matter combined, basically tangled with the Nine's power, and you know, it'll give you some form of a limited access to the fourth dimension if you do use it. And then also thanks to Renegades, we know that it's able to nullify paracausality and empower you. So is that it? Do we already know what it is? Well, yes, but there are two more things that I want to mention that I feel will contribute and explain a lot about what Eclipse Energy is. And the first is from the Epochs and Orbits lore book, which I haven't seen really anybody cover it for some reason. Maybe they haven't. I just haven't seen any videos regarding it. But I'm surprised nobody has, considering just how weird that lore book is. But anyways, it's from the first entry specifically, and this one comes directly from the Sun 9. Quote, "And endless ivory plain extends. The truth of time is laid bare here in opposition to you. Cause and effect are predeterminate law. What has happened will occur. What occurs has happened. What will happen has occurred. You challenge the hierarchy with a paracausal question, but it is squelched by a higher fourth-dimensional order. The time for that question is layers and folds beyond this one." End quote. So that just straight up says that the fourth dimension, due to it being on a higher plane than our current paracausal powers, which are on the third dimension, it can just override them. And we do know that Eclipse Energy is fourth dimensional because Lodi says that it was basically like the fourth dimensional turned off the power or whatever when the Nightfall station hit Tharsis. Now for the second thing. The lore from the new Dungeons Ghost Shell. Quote, "Eclipse, our nature to nurture and negate higher dimensional skill set. Eclipse, a gift to a compliant tool, knees bent and rings kissed. From brother, arrogant, beringed. A memory of a higher place, home, where rays and shadows are extinguished by the weight of being. Before traveler, brother, and red. Dust storms buffeted by carbon dioxide winds, auroras spread green skies. After traveler, light becomes, we nurture. Golden colonnades lift golden arches, red sands sheathe in glistening panoplies. A witness, veil siblings, in the heavens. Dust and auroras become a vacuum, only orbits remain, suffering, as liquid souls and armored morphs are dissolved by a reality of nothing. Death of a witness, Queen of Lies, Eclipse, Red Brother returns. Red sands reform, dark matter in its bones. Its soul reflects, paracausality, wall beyond reach, must obey elemental laws. and those laws are the soul's very foundation, always within reach. The ontology of the vanishing has been rejected, and thus the red valleys reinstantiate. The soul of Mars speaks to the inner orbits. End quote. All right, so that's a lot. So I'm going to try my best to break it down to explain just what the hell it's talking about. Firstly, Eclipse are nature to nurture and negate higher dimensional skill set. Eclipse, a gift to a compliant tool, knees bent and rings kissed. This part is simple. It says that Eclipse Energy, according to this, is their nature and is either able to nurture or negate paracausality. And that second part was already said in the campaign. From Brother, arrogant, beringed, a memory of a higher place, home, where rays and shadows are extinguished by the weight of being. Okay, so that first part is saying that it was gifted to Baal by Saturn, which we already knew. But that second part is interesting. This ghost shell is presented in the same format as the Epochs and Orbis lore book, where it's formatted as the Nine talking to us first, and then there's a description of like some sort of vision or whatever. This is the exact same format, so that means that we are supposed to be seeing the described portions that are in the brackets, not Seven, who was narrating this. The place I could only think of being described here is the fourth dimension, since it calls it a higher place, and that rays and shadows are extinguished under the weight of being, which sounds to me like it's talking about eclipse energy negating light, the rays, and darkness, the shadows. I don't know why it would say that the fourth dimension is home, though. Maybe it's suggesting that life is fundamentally fourth dimension or something like that. That was my first thought, but it didn't really make any sense. So, maybe maybe this is like Seven's memories, although it doesn't really seem like there's anything in here to imply it that this is Seven's memories, since it does, seem like they are speaking directly to us in like some way. Because as far as I know, whenever the Nine interact with each other, they never do this whole like weird visions thing with each other. They only ever do that to like the third dimensional beings like Drifter and us. But there is something I wanted to remember. In the Edge of Fate, we did fuse with dark matter in order to turn into matter spark. So maybe, since the Nine are made of dark matter, the memories of one of them is starting to mix with us somehow. It's definitely a stretch, especially considering that the Nine only form when the dark matter starts forming loops and tubes and whatever, and this is just raw dark matter. But remember that we also have deep sight, lets us view the memories of objects. So maybe we're sort of like subconsciously viewing the memories of this dark matter, and it was in, I don't know, maybe there's like Three's memories or something like that, because I'm pretty sure the dark matter in Kepler is all from like the singularity, which is obviously formed from like Three's dead body. So there's that. But again, it's kind of a big stretch. It is really the only way I could make sense of that passage, though, so that's why. Before Traveler, Brother, and Red. Dust storms buffeted by carbon dioxide winds, auroras spread green skies. After Traveler, light becomes we nurture. Golden colonnades lift golden arches, red sands sheathed in glistening panoplies. This one's simple. It's what Mars was like before and after the Traveler terraformed it. The word panoply, I looked it up. It apparently means a complete suit of armor, and I am assuming the plural of it is panoplies. So I think that is referring to the human cities like Freehold on Mars. The usage of nurture is interesting. Maybe it means they amplified the effect the Traveler had on Mars somehow. I don't really see any other possibility, considering it's positioned like that in there and whatever. I don't really see any other reason for it to be there. A witness veils siblings in the heavens. Dust and auroras become a vacuum. Only orbits remain. Suffering, as liquid souls and armored morphs are dissolved by a reality of nothing. Okay, so this one's pretty confusing. The witness is talking about this. I don't think it is the actual witness that we fought, considering it says a witness, not the witness. The person I think that is referred to here is Savathun, as she does have a history of sort of like watching things from the shadows, like a kind of like basically witnessing events and whatever. It's stupid, I know, but it's kind of really the only thing I could think of. Plus, that final part does seem to back it up, like the part after this or whatever. But anyways, it seems like this is saying that Savathun is hiding potentially other members of the Nine from them, or something else. I don't really know what the hell else this could be saying. As for the vision part, maybe it's talking about them being taken because, like it says they're being dissolved by a reality of nothing, and I don't really see any other possibility aside from maybe the final shape. But then that would probably mean that the witness talking about veiling siblings in heaven is the actual witness, but then, the last part wouldn't make any sense if that is what it's implying. So I don't know. That's the best I could come up. That is the best I could come up with for this. Death of a witness, Queen of Lies, Eclipse, Red Brother returns. Red sands reform dark matter in its bones. Its soul reflects pure causality, well beyond reach, must obey elemental laws. And those laws are the soul's very foundation. Always within reach, the vanishing of the ontology has been rejected, and thus the red valleys reinstantiate. The soul of Mars speaks to the inner orbits. So I think that this is talking about the return of Mars, and the conditions surrounding that. That four resist being taken with the planet, discovering that they can negate paracausality. The witness talked about in this, like I said before, seems to be Savathun, and it seems like she's really the only one who could have witnessed Mars's return. Again, a witness witnesses Mars returns, and it would line up with her dying too, since she died and was resurrected before Mars returned. One big question I always had was exactly how Savathun was able to return Mars, since it's been stated that Savathun is the one who returned to Mars, and Coria died in Season of Splicer before Mars got returned, so that means she lost her control of the Taken and the Ascendant Plane and stuff like that. And it seems like this has been answered as between Queen of Lies and Red Brother returns. It says Eclipse, suggesting that Eclipse Energy had some role to play in the return of Mars, and since Savathun was one who returned Mars, it seems like it's saying that Savathun somehow used Eclipse Energy to return Mars. This is kind of a stretch, somewhat, I'd say, especially considering, to my knowledge, Savathun has never interacted with the Nine before in any sort of way. But if this is true, then this means that Lightbearers could use Eclipse Energy without dying. And if what I just said is actually what the thing is talking about, well, maybe this is what the power to move worlds was that Savathun was talking about in like the two truths and two lies thing, and all the way back in the Witch Queen. Maybe this is how we bring back Io, since that one is still stuck in the Ascendant Plane. Maybe. Okay, but that's the last of the evidence. So let's summarize everything we've learned and went over. We know that Eclipse Energy is a fourth-dimensional energy that is the power of the Nine tangled with dark matter. It can empower you as well as negate and strengthen paracausality. Using it grants you limited access to the fourth dimension. And, if I am correct in my interpretation of the Ghost Shell lore, can be used by Lightbearers without it killing them. And so I think all of that wrapped together is pointing towards the conclusion that Eclipse Energy is the same energy that the Nine use whenever they change or eclipse someone's fate, like when they chucked a train out of Ikora, or yanked Lorelei forward in time, or the blue energy that left the dead guardians in Tharsis after it got blasted by Nightfall. But Eclipse Energy is red, and the energy that they use to change people's fate is blue, so they can't be the same, right? And that is a good point. But remember, after the Guardians in Tharsis were blasted by Nightfall, the energy that left their body was blue. Not the same shade of light blue as our regular light, but the same shade of blue as the energy that the Nine use. That is my connecting thread. That is what ties the Eclipse energy from Nightfall to the power that the Nine use. That is what wraps it all together. But why is the Nightfall station Eclipse energy red then? And honestly, I don't know for sure. My guess is that since kind of everything we saw Eclipse energy being channeled through kind of looks like Pyramid Tech, it kind of corrupted it somehow, like how the anomaly in Vesper's host was corrupted Arclight in a way that made it orange. So maybe that's the same thing that happened to the Eclipse energy with the Nightfall station Pyramid Tech. But obviously, a hole in that is like Premier Loom. At least from what I've seen, from my looks at him, he doesn't really have any visible Pyramid Tech on him. But it could just be covered up like by plating, whatever. But now, do I think that Eclipse Energy will be the red subclass? I think that I am hesitant to say yes, but it seems to be that the story is pointing us towards that. The story and the lore, based on everything I just said, seems to be pointing us in the direction that we will use Eclipse Energy in the future. Whether it'll be a subclass or not, I don't know. It I don't think we have nearly enough evidence to say if it will be a subclass or something like Deep Sight, where it's just something we can do. Lore-wise, as for how we acquire Eclipse Energy, I think that it probably would have something to do with like the dark matter we fuse with on Kepler, because obviously, because we didn't fuse with dark matter on Kepler, so we could turn to like matter spark or whatever. There's one issue I do have with that though, is the whole like we can't turn to matter spark anywhere else, only on Kepler because all the dark matter there. So like, how do we even know if we have enough dark matter in us to even tap into the fourth dimension? Which is good with it, which is a very good point. I don't have an answer for that at all. My guess is that maybe we just end up fusing with more dark matter later in the story. But that's just a guess, no evidence to back it up. So kind of a hole there. But anyways, that's the whole red subclass theory that I have regarding Eclipse Energy's true nature and all that stuff. But yeah, if you like the theory, you want to see more stuff like that, please like, subscribe, and comment. I love seeing feedback, and it also helps me in the algorithm too. And with all that, I will see you later. Okay, so just quick ending note, something that I saw, but so I was looking up images like the Nine or whatever, and for all the Reckoning ones at least, there was a constant eclipse going on in the background. This eclipse stuff seems like now it's just been alluded to for like it's been foreshadowed for years at this point. Like I didn't know that. I just thought it would be interesting to share.